So, but joking aside, going back to the match, and just you hit on some other points in terms of players that you guys brought in. Zaccagni, an interesting player. I think a player that many were keen on, especially the last
but the
few
price
seasons
that you guys paid for him was fantastic.
Yeah, and the price, right? So I honestly think you guys got a bit of a steal. I think it took a little bit of time for him to get rolling. Obviously, he's on hot form right now. I guess the question is, Steve, what do you make of Zaccagni? Is he the player? Is he like that next generation Lazio player in this squad? And what do you make of his season so far, and where his future lies?
Well, first off, I think the big thing is bringing an Italian player to Rome. We haven't seen too much of that in the team in general, and kind of all in Italy. Me and my Nono were actually talking about this the other day, where we're thinking that like kind of the clubs in each league should impose a rule whereby most of the team has to be composed of players from that actual country, just to see the Italian.
How it used to be.
Yeah,
the Stranieri rule.
That kind of have that happen whereby we can kind of develop the Primavera players, because I'm not sure if you guys are aware of it or not, but obviously Lazio Primavera had a shocker of a season last year in the top flight, were relegated, which was kind of disappointing. Obviously right now they're in first place in their division in the second tier, so they'll probably be promoted at this point because they are steamrolling most clubs. Like 5-0, 7-0, I think the past 2 games. So that's kind of good to see. And it's Italian talent that are kind of carrying that team, not, we're going in and buying. Obviously people said, Raul Moro is one of our youth talents. We actually snagged him from Spain, right? Like he's not someone who's been with Lazio and in Italy for quite some time. So, but the players right now who are kind of leading that team, that is the case, which is good to see. With Zaccagni, obviously bringing him in alongside Ciro Immobile, I think that's massive, not only for Lazio, but for the Azzurri. I've kind of tweeted this out twice already since he's been on good form. But honestly, with Chiesa out for the qualifiers, I think there's no better player to replace him right now than Zaccagni and Immobile up front.
Wow.
And then on the other side, obviously having a mix of whatever winger we want to go with. I think Insigne is probably going to be that other individual. Obviously, Zaccagni is used to playing on the left. He can play central. He can play on the right, as we saw against Bologna when other players came in. So it's not withstanding saying, okay, you know what? Well, Zaccagni and Insigne are both starting left wingers. We don't want to put Zaccagni on the right. He does have experience in that position. So I think it's good to see him upgrade from that Hellas Verona team. Obviously, he was the captain. Obviously, he'd been there for quite some time and kind of built up that experience in the top flight. And like you said, it took him a little bit of time to get going. Obviously, he had a few injuries at the start, which kind of set him back. But I think that the kind of upgrade in level from playing with Hellas Verona and being the star of the team, similar to Berardi on Sassuolo, for example, right? We've always said, why hasn't he made that jump to a Milan and Inter? Why hasn't he done that yet? But, some players, they strive at being the leader of the team and kind of an average team. And then when they go to that and try to make that jump, they fail and kind of struggle to do that. I think that was kind of the situation with Zaccagni to Lazio. But since then, obviously, when he's been given the opportunity, he's really impressed. And over recent times, he's probably been, looking at the man of the matches and the ratings and everything like that, and accurate passes, shots on goal, assists, goal contributions. He's been one of the best, and obviously he deserves a lot of credit for that. So it's been really good to see him. And like you said, the price we got him for, obviously a steal. Hellas Verona has been good to us over the years, so hopefully that continues. With Casale, I believe in the summer, hopefully it's kind of a similar deal with him. But obviously it's kind of good to have that relationship with one club. Because obviously the likes of Juventus, whether it be with Fiorentina, for example, always have that kind of feeder club to say that's giving them the next kind of top player. So it's kind of good for Lazio to kind of establish that.
And, touching upon Fiorentina is a perfect transition, actually, because we got a question from Genoa CFC Canada. Our boy Fabri sends in a question saying, do you think Fiorentina will eat up one of our teams for one of the European spots in the top 6? I mean, Lazio did gain some ground this past week with a win versus a lot of the teams ahead of them that just drew their matches. So it kind of gave them a little bit of breathing room from Roma. But Fiorentina is right there with just one game, I guess one win away. So do you think push comes to shove towards the season end that Lazio finishes in the top 6, or do you think maybe they might be on the outside looking in?
I think right now, so before the season had started, me and my cousin kind of do with our Noah, we kind of do a breakdown of okay, where we're going to finish top 1 to 20, write it in the notes, and we check it at the end of the season. Start of the year, I had Fiorentina finishing both above Lazio and Roma. I think Fiorentina was going to be that club that kind of jumped them, made that kind of push over the 2 Roman clubs. But that was obviously when they had Vlahovic. Right now, Things have obviously changed. That's given Juventus a big boost because honestly, I didn't really have Juventus kind of being in that challenging spot. I kind of thought they'd be in the same realm as Lazio and Roma this season, but obviously they've done well in January to add those two big reinforcements. Obviously, they've got Chiesa out as well, but Vlahovic is a massive boost for them. Atalanta has Zapata out, which is kind of their big star power up front with Muriel. So I think right now, as it stands, in that top four spot, I kind of think Napoli, Inter, and Milan are kind of in a tier of their own right now. And I think that last Champions League spot, that fourth place, is going to be a battle between Juventus, Atalanta, Lazio, Roma, and Fiorentina. I think all teams, realistically, if they were to compete the way that they know how to for the rest of the season, I think that all of them can make that fourth place spot if it were all to go good for them. But right now, is Fiorentina going to finish above Lazio and Roma? They obviously not replaced, but kind of reinforced their team when Vlahovic left, and they were kind of prepping for it, and they kept saying, no, it's not for that, it's not for that. But obviously, we all knew something was going to happen. There's no reason to be signing 3 attackers in January if Vlahovic wasn't going to be leaving. So obviously, if those kind of key pieces click together, I think Italiano's done a very good job. I think that was the kind of the manager that we wanted, or that most Laziali wanted Lazio to sign if Sarri wasn't an option, before Sarri became an option. I think most people were opting for Italiano just because of the new and exciting play that he's been doing. So if all goes well, it's kind of hard to say who will end where right now. I think like from 4th to 8th, looking at the table between, like I said, Juventus, Atalanta, Lazio, Roma, Fiorentina, I think it's all up for grabs. It's a matter of like, how do you do against the top sides? How do you do against each other? And if you're able to kind of take advantage of the games against the lower tier sides, because obviously in recent years, Lazio has struggled to do that. And obviously we've seen some weird results. Like we've always struggled against Napoli. We've been thrashed by them. So that's no surprise. But against like kind of like a Bologna, against Udinese, tying 4-4, it's been a little bit weird in that sense. And obviously that kind of stems, I think, from a little bit of fatigue or what we used to call it under Inzaghi, mental lapses. But I think we're starting to get away from that. Those aren't happening too much. Coppa Italia, I'm an exception as of late. But I think, it's kind of hard to say if Fiorentina will kind of overtake them at this point. I think if Vlahovic was there, I think I could probably say yes. I think they'd finish above Lazio and Roma. But with him leaving, it really all depends. I haven't seen too much of the new attackers and how they fit into play at Fiorentina. Maybe give them a few more games, and then we can kind of see what happens.
Now, Adrian, before you move on to, I guess, the Coppa Italia match, I actually just want to ask a bit of a hypothetical question here, because, Milinkovic-Savic is a very, very, very key player for Lazio, huge. Probably one of the top midfielders in the world. And obviously, there's rumors swirling about, as they are for every year, that he might be, let's say, sold come summertime. Do you think if he moves, it factors into the whole decision-making of Sarri? Like, okay, if we have now X amount of budget because he's just sold a major player for a good amount, because he should go for a good amount, in my opinion, do you think maybe he can reinvest it in players that kind of fit his system more or try to be able to implement his system more? Or do you think if SMS leaves, that gives Sarri more of a reason to like, look, you gave away a midfielder that I kind of need, and now what am I going to work with type of thing?
So obviously we've been saying
it's all hypothetical, obviously. So
obviously I think at the end of the day he's happy in Rome, but it's been a weird season whereby, and I've said this earlier on in the season, whereby his agent kind of came out and spoke and said, like, no offense to Lazio, but like kind of it's time that we move on to something a little bit better. That's why I think honestly this summer that something could happen, especially if we miss out on the Champions League spot. Like he's got to be playing in the Champions League, like you said. He's one of the best midfielders in the world. People who are saying 100 million for him or anything above 100 million for him is not worth it. That doesn't quite make sense to me. When I see Vlahovic go for 75 million after a season and a half of playing well, we've seen Milinkovic-Savic grow as a player internationally and domestically for Lazio, and obviously playing against the top opposition in the Europa League and the Champions League for Lazio and standing out, not kind of disappearing. A player of his quality is easily over 100 million for me, and people who are saying, oh no, that's astronomical, that doesn't make any sense to me, especially seeing Vlahovic. Yes, he's younger. Yes, he's a striker. There's always a striker. Like, let's look at Luka Jovic in recent seasons. Vlahovic, obviously Haaland. There's so many strikers out there that can be the next thing. But when you look at Sergej Milinkovic-Savic and his size, his quality, his technique, his experience, I honestly look around at the other central midfielders around Europe and I go, okay, who is honestly like him or who could replace him if he were to leave? So, like, let's say, obviously, your question, if Milinkovic-Savic were to leave, obviously that is a huge component of Sarri's team, right? So we'd have to evaluate and go, okay, how can we replace him in more ways than one. Because obviously, you know what, he's our aerial threat. He's the person in the midfield who wins all those balls. I'm in the air. He's that person who's going to score off a corner, which we rarely do, off a set piece, which we rarely do. Take the free kicks. He's our kind of vice captain, right? When Immobile isn't there, he gets that armband. Something like that is very hard to replace. So, like you said, let's just say hypothetically we were to receive 100 million from Real Madrid, and it was 100 million up front, not 10 million here, 10 million here, 20 million there. Obviously, I think we have the funds available to kind of tailor the squad or tweak the squad to make it to Saudi's liking. But then again, you have to look at what Lotito will do. Obviously, I don't think we made a sale. I think our biggest sale probably under Lotito has probably been 20, 30 million. Maybe actually, sorry, Felipe Anderson probably is our biggest sale to West Ham. It was around 40 million. And kind of using the funds, we got Correa with him. So I think he understands that if we lose a big component of the team, we need to replace him. I'm not saying we're going to go out and spend 100 million on one player. I think it's going to be one of those things that are strategically done, whereby we pay off the rest of our debt. I think that's going to kind of be the primary thing that we've been paying off since the Cragnotti era. And then obviously the next thing will be going, okay, hey, let's look at the players who are out of contract, because that's another whole situation that we have to deal with this summer with our back line and with our midfield and with our goalkeepers. Fulfill those roles, and then obviously if Milinkovic-Savic were to leave, fulfill his role too. So I don't think Saudi would stay, because I think the opportunity is very vast, and I think there's room for opportunity and for change. It's just a matter of, obviously, like I said, if Lotito talks to him and they go, okay, hey, you know what, if we sell Milinkovic, we have 100 million to play with here, how are we going to do this? And he has a say in it, that's fine. If we've been doing what we've been doing in recent seasons, whereby we say, oh, hey, you know, we're going to do something, and the president himself and the sporting director says, yeah, we're going to sign someone, and we get to the final day of the transfer window and we make a random loan signing, I think that's when he goes, okay, I'm going to call it quits. So I think, like I said, this winter, and Tade was weird when he came out and said, you know what, this is the best transfer window that I think we've had, which seems very, very, very odd to me, considering he sent out a lot of fringe players on loan, which is great because we were finally able to find homes for them, but they're all going to be back in 6 months, and the people who aren't are going to be having their contract expire. We've been paying for their contracts for 5 years to not play for Lazio. So it's one of those things where it was very weird by what he said. So that makes me feel like something big is happening in the summer. And obviously with the likes of Romagnoli's name popping up, the likes of Golini and Pessina popping up over the last few days, that makes me think that a lot of the transfer window was spent actually negotiating for players in the summer, which is why I think he's saying, you know what, like, let's calm down a little bit, let's wait. And that's why I've kind of gotten a little bit more optimistic with regards to this summer, especially when, you know what, a lot of our players who we've been paying, who haven't been playing for the club, I think a lot of them are going to be gone finally. So that's kind of that good thing that, you know, maybe this is actually the summer where a lot of the stuff starts to happen.